Every Wednesday, William Henry's Revelations bring you a powerful half hour of information at the cutting edge of reality. Information that you cannot find anywhere else in the world. And now, here's William.
Welcome, everyone. Today, we have a very special guest. Robert Perala is the internationally acclaimed author of The Divine Blueprint, Roadmap for the New Millennium, and The Divine Architect, The Art of Living and Beyond. Robert's a graduate of the Robbins Research Institute, and in 2007 was the winner of the prestigious Certificate of Congressional Recognition Award given to him at Stanford University for his humanitarian relief efforts with UNICEF and Adopt a Minefield. His current effort is the new upcoming website and video blog, The Divine Intelligence. Join the conversation, but for now you can visit robertperala.com. Robert, welcome to Revelations.
Thanks, William. Great to be on your show.
Oh, so glad to have you. We need a breath of fresh air here.
Well, here it is.
Great. Thank you for taking the time. So much going on in the world right now. You keep on top of it. You appear at a lot of events. You're often the MC as well as a presenter at events. Where's the pulse of things right now, Robert?
So many things, you know. We're in the midst of the vast sweeping change in consciousness, and it's kind of happening all over. Almost everywhere you look, people are being sort of subjugated in one form or another to the misinformation and the disinformation about what they've come to believe about themselves thus far. I mean, even the astrologers all point to this kind of popular pop phrase, the truth vibrations that are coming in. It's made popular by people like David Icke and others that have talked about this. I think you can see everywhere that the old world is meeting the new world and exposing what works and what doesn't work. And so thus we're in a vast spiritual revolution. It's a very exciting time, and way-showers like you and Whitley and so many others are really pioneering this too. So it's just great to be on your show. You're
in Northern California, the Bay Area, right?
Yeah, I'm in Scotts Valley, which is just sort of in between the sort of sane people of the Bay Area and the crazy metaphysicians of Santa Cruz. So I'm right in between.
I know. That's why I love that area. You've got the glitterati, the literati, and the Illuminati, and the digerati all in the same little town there, and it's all happening right in that place.
Yeah, a lot of culture here.
Yeah, flesh and machine are meshing there, and people are saying, hey, cool, definitely, give me the chip. I'm ready to achieve Buddhahood by having the chip implanted, and that's
right.
The digerati. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Well, an interesting news item just came up this morning. I don't know if you guys heard this or whatever. I walked into a 7-Eleven. Somebody told me that, did you know that it was announced this morning that in a few months' time they're going to actually be installing a card that you will need to enter a men's or women's restroom, which I found like, really? To identify yourself whether you're a man or a woman? I said, well, isn't that more about identifying where you are versus, who you are? So I don't know. Did you hear anything like this?
No, I haven't heard anything about that. I've been more consumed by Google Glass and these new glasses that Google's putting out that will let you kind of walk around, surf the net, surf images, but at the same time record everyone and everything you come into contact with. Scary.
Yeah, remarkable time. Well, you're everywhere you go in some form or another, there is sort of a monitoring system. I mean, I've told people for months and months now that it wasn't a real great idea to have a smart meter on your house because it was really put out by UN-mandated Agenda 21 that was actually able to install a meter that was able to transfer personal information and data from your house to a cell phone tower. And I said, is this the American dream you were dreaming of?
Yeah, Agenda 21, Big Brother's big hand with a big club in it if you use too much, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just part and parcel to the world being the destabilization in everything from international to domestic issues and everything. I mean, you just see it all over. So it's a heavier hand that's sort of coming in now because of the coming times and everything.
Yeah, in the coming times, you say, rightly, I believe, that the divine intelligence is all around us. What have you found, and what are you seeing?
Well, more than anything else, I've been studying, going back to some of the original curriculum of people like Ernest Holmes, who wrote The Science of Mind, Emmett Fox, others. I just graduated from a class in behavioral science last year, an extracurricular class that I wanted to take, and learning to sit still and learning about affirmative prayer and learning to absolutely try to still the mind. Now, the metaphysicians and astrologers all over are pointing to this time of a time when you can actually access this intelligence that surrounds all things. There's no place that it's not. It's around you. It's within you. It combines all things together. And the difference now today is it's because of these various conjunctions that we're in, and we're in this area of exposure and truth. This is why you see the fall of the Middle East and the exposure of the patriarchal system and everything else. Because all that is happening, the atmosphere is actually changing frequency somewhat and lightening up, you might say. So if you were able to sit still, and also that needs to be mentioned here that not only sitting still is one thing, but it's also implementing what we call the laws of right relation, willingness, and intent. That is our relationship with spirit and ourself, the intention, what do we want to do, and the willingness to be a vessel for the divine itself. What are you willing to give up to be a part of this vast growth and expansion of awareness and understanding? The atmosphere is filled actually with things you can't see. You're actually walking with a committee, and this committee is changes hands in one form or another. It's maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 different entities are actually walking with you and listening to what you're saying out loud to your friends and family. But what's more interesting is that they're hearing what you're thinking at the same time. So you might say, well, this is interesting because you find out that people are not as congruent as they thought or see themselves as.
Who are these entities, Robert? This, as you're talking, this reminds me of the Robert Downey movie, Heart and Souls, where he had these 4 disincarnate beings following around till they did the one thing that they needed to do to cross over. Are we talking about beings like that, or who are we talking about?
Yeah, it's actually a series of different things. You have discarnates that you wouldn't remember while you're in the material world because they were the same people that were standing with you the day before you were born. They were the same ones that were cheering you on, wishing you the best, and saying, you won't remember us when you get to this place. As you grow up into infancy and you become socio-conditioned to the material plane, you will even have denied that we are even in existence.
And now they got you. Science has got you. That's right where they want you.
Yes. So now they're returning, or not they're returning, they never actually left you. And, in fact, they were the ones that were standing there watching you being born. But that's another story. But to answer your question and stay on point is that this committee is like your team. I tell people in my talks, if you're not working or getting familiar with your team by now, you probably might want to try, because your team can now actually probably have more influence in your life. You probably can understand or feel or sense them in a way that you maybe couldn't have even 5 or 10 years ago, because there's a speeding up of everything around you. And in that, this team becomes more alive for you. It's what John Edwards calls, when he says that he hears or senses or sees a picture, like he hears every third word, or he'll see an image, a flashing of maybe an item, jewelry or something, and then all of a sudden he'll point to this area of the crowd, and he says it's coming from here. That's his team talking to him. It's not like they speak out loud and say, gee, William, don't you think you want to reconsider that?
Yeah, I gotcha. Robert, did you ever study hypnosis?
What's that?
Did you ever study hypnosis?
I have a little bit, not a lot.
Yeah, back in the early 90s, mid-90s, I did hundreds of past life regressions, and I also developed something called the parts party. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that we've all got these different parts of ourselves that are responsible for different aspects of our life. For example, the Robert that's talking to me is not the same Robert that speaks to your wife, your beautiful wife, Elle. Your mannerism's different, your tone of voice is different, what you're giving to me is different than your relationship with her. So there's 2 parts of yourself, and the idea is that you can go deep into relaxation and isolate those parts, and they even take form as men, women, children, objects, or things. And the idea is that you can get them all around a table, have a meeting, if you will, like, for example, if you want to quit smoking, there's a part of you that's responsible for smoking. And so you would need to work with that part to get it, see that, yeah, okay, that's a positive behavior, but it's no longer required. and what you're looking for is a transformation. You're usually going to see that part change clothing or change some attribute, and that's how you know the person is actually successfully transformed. They've made the change. So
Nice.
it sounds to me like the team you're talking about are the parts that I used to deal with all the time in these parts parties.
Yes, very true. That team, you might say you're sharing the space. Not even all your thoughts are your own. You have a sudden, profound sort of revelation, and then all of a sudden you think, what is that? And then you notice, like 2 minutes later, you go, what was that? And you can't even quite remember what the thought even was.
Yeah,
so they're kind of blending with you,
Yeah, a woman, there's one that comes to mind, a woman, she was an accountant, but straight-laced, buttoned-down accountant, pretty, and she came and she says, I just can't get a real boyfriend. I walk into a bar and all these guys fire on me. They hit on me like I'm some kind of tramp. So we go into the parts party. We find out, well, the part of herself that's responsible for her relationships dressed in black leather, stilettos, and was smoking and looked like a hooker. And it's like, that's the problem, because you're giving off this vibe at a deep subconscious level, and you're not even aware of it. But this is what other people are picking up around you.
That's it. That you've got it exactly there. That's the lightening of the frequency of everyone. You're becoming almost more sensitive to every issue that comes your way, people that stand or speak before you. That's the beginning of what we'll look upon maybe 50 years from now. Remember when the first people at the turn of the century were becoming telepathic?
Multidimensional.
That's the birthing of this new expression that we're in. That's this whole birthing of this sort of being raised up, and the Bible even refers to this, the Vedic text and a number of ancient texts, which you're very good at, explain that very concept, the time when the angels walk amongst men, or there is a return of the spiritual hierarchy. Some will know the time has come, and others will deny anything is happening. You get the picture? So, those that are awake, I always try to encourage people, try to be fully authentic and be fully present and awake here. A lot of my talks are real based in personal growth. I know that they say, well, Rob, you're kind of like the intergalactic Tony Robbins, aren't you, or something. This is a lovely compliment. But truthfully, we're each and every day, is what we were trying to say in Divine Architect, is that we were builders of the soul. Each and every day we were incorporating what serves creation, what takes away from creation, what serves itself, what takes away. All the while we were architects and builders of our own life here. And many people sleep through their whole life. William, you know who my best teachers are? And I have some great ones. Trust me, there's really great teachers out there. But my best teachers are my hospice patients. They tell me what they would do if they could turn the clock back. And my clock is turned back. And I mean, imagine this. The doctor walks in the office or in your room, says, you've just been given 6 weeks to lift off. Destination, unknown. You'd be thinking hard about this experience, and a lot of people sort of cram for their final going, 6 weeks? Wait a minute. If I thought my life was going to go by this fast, I think I'd want my money back.
Yeah, exactly. And what would you do if you weren't afraid, right?
Yeah, and you have to walk through that veil. We must all walk through that veil. George Harrison's sister was a very close friend of mine for a number of years and still is. And she said, George Harrison, the Beatle.
The great prophet, George Harrison, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Was preparing for his transition for years before he made it. Because that's what the whole Vedic thing in sitting still in meditation was all about, was to try to bridge the gap between the material and the non-material plane so one can slip through the veil easily and live in the material world with ease without the fear of death and dying.
Yeah, fascinating. I interviewed a gentleman who wrote a spiritual biography of George Harrison, and he affirmed all that. And I call him the prophet because he did fulfill a 16th century prophecy that said that the Hare Krishna would be chanted worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And he accomplished that.
He did.
Incredible. Robert, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to learn about this experience you had with this otherworldly being that had some kind of an oil associated with him in the story. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I also want to get into some of the work you're doing with the disclosure movement. So let's get into that after the break. This is Revelations. We'll be right back.
Graham Hancock's going to be talking about altered states, good and evil, parallel universes, and the future of mankind in his first presentation. But there are going to be two presentations. His second one is Message of the Gods. What did the past tell us? Our strange, disappeared past. There is a message being cried out from the depths of history and time, from a forgotten world. Graham knows that message, and he's going to tell us all about it. William Henry's two presentations, the Judgment Day Device Project, the race for the most powerful relic of all time. William is on that race, and he's going to have some incredible information from us in his first presentation. In his second presentation, The Path of Souls. We're in a matrix. We all know it. Even science knows it. How do we escape? William's second presentation, Mapping Our Escape from the Matrix. My first presentation, The Visitors, the Soul, and the Future of Man. I've come to a new place in my understanding of the visitor experience, of why they are here, what our future is, what the soul is, where we came from and where we are going. It's basic change for me. I'm going to present that to you. I'm going to tell you some profound and powerful secrets about being human, things that I don't think anyone has ever really known before, not with this kind of clarity. My second presentation will be a new kind of meditation. I call it a meditation for soul coherence. We live in a world that is lying to us and telling us we have no souls. We're going soul blind at a time when we need connection with our souls more profoundly than perhaps we ever have in history. We need this. So come to the unveiling May 17th through the 19th in Nashville. To get your tickets, go to unknowncountry.com, click on the ad on the right side of the page, click on the ad. Don't miss this, and if you're a subscriber, take advantage of the $25 off coupon in our subscriber section.
Hello, I'm Claire Henry. Some say there is an angel in all of us. I believe this to be true. Angels have been amongst us all since the beginning of time, loving, guiding, nurturing, and sustaining us as we walk the path of life. My new book, Sacred Reflections, is about life's journey with the angels, featuring 300 pages of over 450 beautiful color images of delicious angels. The book takes you on a journey of the soul from conception to birth, childhood to death, and beyond, with written words that embody the message that the angels are gifting humanity now. My near-death experience sets in stone my belief of the magnificent spirit world, which I share with you all in my book. This beautiful book will join heaven and earth within you to inspire, awaken, and give you comfort in the grand plan of life at this important time in history. The perfect gift to help you wake up from the dream and assist in your transformation to spiritual enlightenment. Order Sacred Reflections today from www.clairessacredtreasures.com and reflect upon the preciousness of the angels in your world and the gifts that they bring.
This is Revelations. We're continuing with Robert Perala. Robert, you've been doing work for years on extraterrestrial science and focusing on various entities that people are encountering. Tell us about some of this work.
Well, it started for me, as a child, seeing apparitions, men and women like you and I who had benefited from greater time and greater knowledge. And because I had the ability to see them, when I released my first book in Clearback in 1999, the movie The Sixth Sense was out. And so the book was perfectly timed inadvertently with the movie, and suddenly they said, well, we've got the real thing here and all that, and he sees all that. But it really, the short story of it is really going back to 1977, where, yes, I simply did a very, an affirmative prayer, lit a candle on the California-Nevada border in the area of Heavenly Valley, and asked if there was anything out there. And if there was anything out there, I'd like to meet with it. And, I was 21 years old at the time, and little did I know that anything would even really happen. I really didn't even believe in it, really. I was just having fun with it. And it was on the day after Christmas, December 26th, and nothing happened when I did the initial incantation with the candle about 9 o'clock at night. About 2:30 in the morning, I was startled awake. What seemed like a freight train was almost going through the living room, and suddenly a deafening sound started to fill the whole room, and the entire room became charged with blue, green, white, purple, indigo light particles of some kind, and suddenly 3 what looked like 8.5-foot tall cosmonauts of some kind actually beamed down into the house, opened up the side of the house, took me through the side of the house into this, what looks like a wormhole. You can actually see this in the movie Contact with Jodie Foster.
Wow.
Very accurate. That's a very accurate depiction of what it looks like to go through one of those. And then was brought back, and when I was brought back, I was lowered on the bed, and suddenly I was covered in like a honey or like oil material. The 3 cosmonauts can be seen on my website at robertperala.com. And we'll post that again tomorrow. But, I'd never seen anything like that ever in my life. I didn't know anything like that even really truly existed. And, you only see 10% of really what's there in the photograph. But, there was a photograph, strangely enough, taken of it by Jeff Greenshaw, an off-duty police officer in Falkville, Alabama in 1973. But, when I came out of the experience, I was soaked in like a honey or an oil-like material. I was sunburned from head to toe, and I threw up over the side of the bed. And then I pulled myself up into the vanity mirror a couple hours later and realized that I had no idea what had even happened. I had no idea that I'd even done an incantation or a prayer to request something like this. That wouldn't be recovered for 15 years. And then I locked myself in my apartment for 3 months, in the first 3 months of 1978, and I didn't want to tell anybody about what happened. I didn't think anybody'd believe me. Wow. And then slowly but surely I made my way into metaphysics and spirituality, and then eventually did exactly what I said I was going to do in that prayer, which was I would share it with people. I would share the experience. And then, so here we are in the future, and I'm actually sharing this same story. They'll say on my epitaph, when I finally pass from this plane, they'll say, he told the same damn story all the way to the end.
Well, it's a really good one, because when you talk about an oil or a honey-like substance, that gets me really excited, because I for example, you probably know the story of Enoch when he's taken up into the heavenly realms by the Archangel Michael, who rubs an oil over his body that dissolves his body into the rainbow body, the glory body, or the resurrection body, and is like the wormhole body. Mm-hmm. And so to hear you talk about this oil substance over your body is a phenomenal detail.
Wow, I actually never heard that story. And that's great to hear a validation of that. It must be some kind of protectant of some kind.
It's like the cosmic condom that's rubbed over the body is the way I look at it.
Or I was the first guy to get slimed.
Yeah,
as in
the first guy to get slimed. Well, actually, Jesus was, because Mary Magdalene had learned the secrets of this oil as well. And that's the anointing oil that she rubbed on Christ's feet that prepared him for his resurrection and ascension, which is another example of a wormhole experience as well. So I think, that's why I'm so intrigued by your story, is because you're like the babe in the woods, but yet the details of it are so phenomenal.
Yeah, it really did change my life. I strangely enough made my way. I kid Dick Hoagland a lot, Richard Hoagland, and I said, I remember him when he did his very first lecture. When he started doing lectures.
His voice was really like childlike in that. And, yeah.
Well, clear back in 1978, yeah, exactly. Wow. He was up there with in San Francisco, and he did his lecture there at the first UFO symposium on the West Coast in '78 with William Shatner and J. Allen Hynek.
Wow.
Yeah, I go back that far. I'm 57 now, William.
Man,
yeah.
Robert, never would have guessed.
Yeah, it goes by quick, doesn't it?
It sure does. So your work then led into an area that's of interest to a lot of people. Other people go, what? And that's the subject of the Pleiadians. What's your take on the Pleiadians? Who are they and what are they up to?
Well, the Pleiadians are even mentioned in the Lost Books of Job. You know, I took a little flack for this on Coast to Coast a few years ago, but that's all right. In the Lost Books of Job, it says, you know, you are descendants of the house of Pleiades and the house of Sirius and the house of Orion, and it made a number of references that we were actually in a kinship. You might consider them like they're men and women like you and I who have just benefited from greater time and greater knowledge. They're largely time jumpers who seem to jump in at various periods of time as Earth is going through slightly different expressions. So you might say their influence is felt more at certain points of where we leave the old world into a new world. And we've seen this happen all throughout history. You know, where their influence is felt. They don't interfere really in any way. They certainly don't announce themselves. They enter into people's lives in the subconscious and the quietude for those that are willing to accept the idea or just get used to the idea. And I've seen them actually appear in the middle of the night as an apparition in my room. This is how I receive the information. I receive it actually in what's called the hypnagogic state, which is that window between beta before you fall through the hypnagogic and then into delta, into deep sleep. I stay awake in that mid portion, and then I see sometimes people walking through the room, and then they will actually project like an idea to me, or like, you know, like you see a movie. It takes you 2 hours to see the movie, right? But after the movie's over, it only takes you a moment or two to enter into a particular idea or concept in the middle of that movie. That's the way they kind of project a concept. It's a very quick kind of blip that they almost telepathically send to you. So it's not like they actually speak to you. It's they give you a snippet of an idea, and then the rest is up to you to try to interpret what that might mean to you and discover the rest of it. And they have a tremendous influence on this planet. They've been millions of years old. They have a tremendous influence on this planet throughout its growth.
The term I use for them, I borrowed actually from Dr. Nick Begich. That is, I call them beamers. And beamers on one level are people who have been beamed a few too many times by alien probes, right? But beamers are also people that radiate light and wisdom. They beam or glow, literally, and they have the ability to beam, in the Star Trek vernacular, through the universe. They can dematerialize themselves into non-physicality and then phase back into physicality when they need to. And you know, it's just kind of a funny term. I like to call them beamers, and it covers a lot of ground, but at the same time, it makes me wonder, why is there this sort of kind of inside ha-ha joke with these beings? Why do we snicker at it? Why? But yet it's the most serious, deadly serious subject you could ever imagine studying. Why do you think that is? You've studied a lot of behavioral science. Why do people go this way with this?
You know, people gravitate to a belief because it makes them feel comfortable. It creates identity. It reinforces so I am this or I am that. People are always trying to find themselves in one form or another. They're very, very self-absorbed. Behavioral science is a fascinating subject because a lot of people go to a church and they tell you what to believe. In divine science, or the science of mind, this kind of thing, teaches you more how to believe and how to discern. So I'm more interested in that, of how do we discern as we're sort of moving from this particular plane and this belief model and system, and what is our best advantage to move through this in a comfortable way where we don't run into all the emotional baggage and problems, rumination. Like Eckhart Tolle says, a lot of their thought forms are even not necessarily new or anything. They're just ruminations of the same stories. And we play that out in our head, and we blow off a bunch of time on this planet because we're still stuck living in the past and recreating the scenario of what we would have said at the time, or we're living in the future in anticipation or fear or excitement about what could be, might be, but rarely are we right in the complete now where this moment can be filled with grace and filled with a sense of connectedness to spirit. And the more we live in the now and come in the now, the more our team actually has the ability to sort of support us and help us, because our mind is not so externally distracted with what happened before or might happen in the future. You know?
Yeah, and I think you've hit on what I have learned is perhaps maybe the greatest or most important message out of this whole endeavor, this whole study, is that it's like, hey guys, being in a human body is a very precious gift, and we all take it for granted, don't we?
We really
many of us do, I should say.
Don't we? And it is a sacred thing, our body, and so many people regret it. My hospice patients go, gosh, if I knew I'd end up like this, I would have done things so differently.
Mm.
You know?
Did you must have studied with Daniel Brinkley on the hospice.
Sure. That's where I got my initial training from Compassion in Action. I'd known Danny like a brother of mine. He's at the forward in my book, Divine Architect. A lovely guy. He's like a brother to me. And he always said, if God couldn't come today and God sent you, what difference did God make? You know, and I live by that too.
I know. I repeat that very, very statement quite often. If the Holy Spirit couldn't come today and they sent you, what are you doing with your life that will leave a lasting impact that could change people? Wow, that's not just a challenge. It's also an inspiring concept, isn't it?
Well, what a platform you and Whitley have with Unknown Country and Revelations and your books and your general output, because you're really taking the bull by the horns and allowing a platform for people to grow profoundly by projecting information. It's lovely to talk about the phenomena. I love the phenomenon, that what we lovingly call the phenomenal aspects of the human experience. And that's dessert. That's more like the ice cream sundae. But it's the food that I'm really interested in. What sustains us in this moment? How can we live with just total ease, great communication skills, interesting, character traits that fulfill us? I mean, it's like going to the gym. I do a lot of personal growth. It's like going to the gym. I said, wouldn't it be great if we could all do one push-up and look like Arnold, a spiritual Superman? But it doesn't work like that, does it? You have to practice every day. Every day, practice. What is it that I do today to forgive or to love or to deepen my character? Yeah.
And what do I have to do to become a beamer is what I want to know. I want to be beaming just like those Pleiadians.
You got it. That's
Robert, tell us what's coming up for you in the coming months.
Well, I'll be at the Fourth Density Conference. That's coming up in Irvine on the 30th and 31st. At the Portal of Ascension presents the Fourth Density Conference. I'll be down there with Peter Sterling and Laura Eisenhower and some great people. And
Revelations guests all. Yep, very interesting folks, Laura and Peter.
Lovely. And I'll be at the New Living Expo. There, in San Francisco, on the 30th, 26th through the 28th of April in San Francisco at the New Living Expo, and so that'll be a lot of fun, and I think a lot of us are there.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's such an amazing time for people to be gathering. We've got the Revelation Symposium coming up here in Nashville at the end of May with Graham Hancock, Whitley Strieber coming to town. Love to invite you to join on in, Robert. If you happen to be in this area, pop in and see us.
I would love to. Fantastic.
Well, it's been so nice catching up with you. Thank you, as I said at the top, for the breath of fresh air. You always bring a nice levity as well as some lightness to what's going on. I really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to seeing the new video blog, The Divine Intelligence, join the conversation. Any words about that?
Well, we're looking to debut it here in the next 3 weeks, the divineintelligence.com, a video blog that incorporates anecdotes for living and people like you that offer great things and thought and consideration. And let me just say that you and Whitley, your spirits shine very bright and light the way for many.
Well, thank you, Robert. That's very kind. I just week after week show up here, do the interview, and I hope people are listening. I hope we're keeping the light shining. That's the goal anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Many blessings to you, Robert. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, William. Many blessings. Talk soon.
Talk soon. This has been Revelations. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.
Attending a William Henry presentation is unforgettable. Keep up with his schedule at williamhenry.net. You've been listening to William Henry's Revelations on Dreamland Radio. Next Wednesday, another cutting-edge revelation from William Henry.